Michael had been looking forward to this trip for months. Living 6 hours away from his younger brother Jake meant they rarely got to spend quality time together, and Jake's tiny one-bedroom apartment made overnight visits impossible. So when Michael found a rental house just 3 blocks from Jake's place at the same price as the nearby hotels, it seemed like the perfect solution. The house was nothing fancy, a simple 2-bedroom with basic furniture that looked like it had been furnished from a thrift store. But it was clean, quiet, and most importantly, close to Jake. Michael arrived early that Friday morning, met Jake for lunch at their favorite diner, picked up groceries for the weekend, and was back at the rental by 5 o'clock. The first evening passed pleasantly enough. Michael called his wife back home, watched some television, and was in bed by 9 o'clock. The long drive had taken more out of him than he'd expected, and he was looking forward to a full night's rest before a busy Saturday with Jake. He fell asleep easily but woke sometime in the deep of night to a sound that didn't belong. His eyes opened to complete darkness, and for a moment, he couldn't place what had disturbed his sleep. Then he heard it again, footsteps moving slowly through the house, deliberately quiet but not quite silent enough. Michael's first thought was that Jake had used his spare key to come over, maybe to grab something he'd forgotten or to surprise him. But as he listened more carefully, something felt wrong. The footsteps were too careful, too cautious. Jake would have turned on lights, called out a greeting, made his presence known. These footsteps belonged to someone who didn't want to be discovered. Michael heard a door close softly somewhere in the house, followed by silence so complete it seemed to press against his eardrums. He lay frozen in bed, every muscle tense, straining to hear more. Minutes passed with no additional sounds, and gradually he began to wonder if he'd imagined the whole thing. Old houses make noises, he told himself. Strange beds in unfamiliar places can make you hear things that aren't there. But sleep wouldn't come back. Michael slipped out of bed and tiptoed through the house, checking each room methodically. The living room looked exactly as he'd left it. The kitchen was undisturbed. All the doors and windows were locked tight. The only thing that gave him pause was the front door. He could have sworn he'd thrown the deadbolt before going to bed, but now it was unlocked. Michael turned the deadbolt with a decisive click and went back to bed, convincing himself that he'd simply forgotten to lock it properly. Jet lag from the long drive, he reasoned. It happens to everyone. The next day with Jake was wonderful. They visited their old haunts from childhood, caught up on family news, and ended the evening at Jake's favorite restaurant. Michael didn't mention the strange sounds from the night before. There was no point in worrying Jake over what was probably just his imagination. But when the rental house owner called that afternoon to let him know they'd changed the door code for security reasons, Michael felt a chill of vindication. Something had happened the night before. Someone had been in the house who shouldn't have been there. Michael returned to the rental house around 8:30 that evening, tired but relaxed from the day with his brother. The new door code worked perfectly, and he made sure to engage every lock on every door and window before settling in for the night. He even dragged a chair over to prop against the front door, a trick his father had taught him during his paranoid phase after a break-in at their family home years ago. Despite his precautions, sleep came fitfully. Every sound seemed amplified in the darkness, the house settling, the refrigerator cycling on and off, the distant hum of traffic. Michael found himself checking the clock repeatedly, 11:47 p.m., 12:33 a.m., 1:15 a.m. He was just beginning to drift off when he heard it again. Footsteps. But this time they weren't trying to be quiet. Someone was running through the house, moving from room to room with urgent purpose. Michael bolted upright and grabbed his phone, finger hovering over the emergency call button. The footsteps pounded through the living room, into the kitchen, back through the hallway. Whoever it was seemed to be searching for something specific. Then Michael heard his bedroom door, the room he was in, being approached. Heavy footsteps stopped right outside his door, and he could see shadows moving in the thin line of light beneath it. The door handle turned. Michael had locked his bedroom door before going to sleep, and now he was infinitely grateful for that paranoid precaution. The handle rattled as someone tried to force it, then stopped. For a moment, there was perfect silence. Then came the sound that would haunt Michael's dreams for years to come, a man's voice, low and angry, muttering words that were too muffled to understand but carried a tone of pure frustration and rage. The footsteps retreated, moving back through the house with that same urgent energy. Michael heard crashes and thuds, furniture being moved, cabinet doors slamming, objects hitting the floor. It sounded like someone was tearing the place apart. Michael called 911 with shaking fingers, whispering his location and situation to the dispatcher. The sounds of destruction continued for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Then, just as Michael heard sirens approaching in the distance, the chaos stopped. The front door opened and slammed shut, and silence returned to the house. The police found Michael barricaded in the bedroom, still clutching his phone. When they escorted him out to survey the damage, he could hardly believe what he saw. The living room looked like it had been hit by a tornado, furniture overturned, cushions slashed open, books and papers scattered across the floor. The kitchen was in similar chaos, with every cabinet and drawer torn open and their contents dumped. But here was the strange part: nothing appeared to be missing. The television was still there, untouched. Michael's laptop, which he'd left on the kitchen counter, was undisturbed. His wallet and car keys were exactly where he'd left them. Whoever had done this wasn't a thief in any conventional sense. The rental house owner arrived within an hour, a middle-aged woman named Patricia who seemed genuinely shocked by the destruction. She walked through the house with the police officers, shaking her head in disbelief. In 15 years of renting this place, nothing like this has ever happened, she told Michael. "I'm so sorry. I'll refund your money completely, of course, and cover any personal belongings that were damaged." But Michael was already packing his few possessions, eager to get to a hotel where he could feel safe. The police took his statement and promised to increase patrols in the area, but Michael could see in their eyes that they didn't expect to catch whoever had done this. As he drove away from the rental house for the last time, Michael couldn't stop thinking about what the intruder had been looking for. The search had been too methodical, too thorough to be random vandalism. Someone was looking for something specific, something they believed was hidden in that house. The question that kept him awake in his hotel room that night was whether they'd found it. And if they hadn't, would they be back to search again? Michael never did get answers to those questions. The police investigation went nowhere, and Patricia eventually sold the house rather than continue renting it out. But Michael still thinks about that night sometimes, especially when he stays in unfamiliar places. He always checks the locks twice now, and he never forgets to secure his bedroom door. The memory of those angry footsteps searching through the house, looking for something he couldn't even imagine, serves as a reminder that sometimes we stumble into other people's stories without knowing it. And sometimes, those stories are darker and more dangerous than we could ever guess.